Mark.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Boston Straight Shooter. This is the show we talk about everything Boston sports related. We've got the Boston Red Sox, we've got the Boston Bruins, the Boston Celtics, and the New England Patriots. I'm your host, Frank. I call myself Swami Jr., but not as of late. Not as of late. I've been, messing up a little as of late. And we're gonna have to, get to that point. But the other Swami of a sense is who's also joining the show is my co-host Steve, and I call him Negative Ned. That's why, because when it comes to being negative about any Boston sports team, Steve's your guy. So that's why we call him, hey, Negative Ned. And we got to talk about some things before we dive into that stuff. First of all, Steve, how you been? How you been for the last week or so?
Good, Frank. Can't complain. How about you?
I could, but no, like I always say, nobody cares. You know what I mean, Steve? Nobody cares.
That's right. We know. It doesn't do any good.
Right. So we're gonna dive right in. We're gonna talk about a lot of the Boston sports because the Celtics are playing right now. And obviously the Bruins are active. You've got the Celtics active, the Bruins active, the Patriots active. The only team that's not so active is the Boston Red Sox, but they made news in the past week and a half or so because they dropped a documentary that was basically around and about the Boston Red Sox come from behind, win victory against the New York Yankees. And it was titled, what was it called again? Do you remember the name of it? Was it called? I don't know. But it's basically about the comeback of the 2004 World Champs, Boston Red Sox. Steve, me and I have been talking offline, about this, and I was hoping you got a chance to see it. I'm glad you did. For those of you who didn't see it, that obviously the unlike the previous documentary, they give a serious Netflix dive and a serious dive in about this, and they really focused on the 2003 ALCS, and then they focused on the revamp of how things went on. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, please watch it. I didn't want to spoil it for you, but now I'm knowing that you've seen it, right, Steve? Kevin's joined the show. What's up, Kev? How you doing? I guess you can't hear me. Can you hear me, Kev?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. Steve, I don't want to ruin it for you. I don't want to, if you haven't seen the documentary about the Boston Red Sox yet, please come back in the show about 5 minutes. We'll stop talking about it 5 or 10 minutes.
I was going to say it's a spoiler alert, so don't listen for just yet.
Yeah, it's a spoiler alert. But if you did see it, we obviously want you guys to chime in and talk to us and tell us what your thoughts are and anything else. I'm going to give you my biggest takeaways from it, and then Steve, you give me yours and tell me what you liked the most. And my biggest thing was I really liked the in-depth interview that they did with Theo. You know what I mean? The way he was given the in-depth talking process of breaking down what was happening during the 2003 and ultimately 2004 seasons. I absolutely loved that part. I loved Kevin Millar's take on everything. He was hilarious. But the biggest takeaway to me that they breezed by, and I want to see if you caught this, Steve, they breezed by, was Pedro mentioned that there was a camera and they thought there was somebody recording something behind the plate or behind second base during the game of the 2004 ALCS, the game that the Red Sox eventually lost 19-8. Did you hear that, Steve? Do you remember that comment?
No, I don't remember that.
Go back into it. I was hoping you would catch it. They talked about it so short. He said, yeah, we thought there was a camera. And he said, what do you mean camera? Camera's in the room, cameras behind the plate. And then they breezed. I was like, wait a minute. What?
I don't remember that.
I rewound it. I know they said it because I rewound it twice because I was like, how could you breeze by this part and not say anything?
Is this in episode 1 or 2?
2, because they're talking about the ALCS for 2004 ALCS when the Red Sox got blown out. Right after that, Pedro said something along the lines of, hey, we noticed there's some cameras, some recordings. And the guy who's behind the camera says, yeah, you think they were recording? He says, yeah. He says, yeah, we thought there was recordings. And then they just breezed right over. And then they switched over. They cut the scene and went to the next thing. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up and talk about it, especially, with you guys, is because if you guys recall, there was a huge problem, a huge issue in Major League Baseball about stealing signs. Not even, 10 years ago. Not even 10 years ago. It's been
Houston.
Houston got big. Yeah, that was it.
The
Houston
Red Sox
caught up
got bagged too for having the Apple Watch thing.
Right.
They got busted too.
Right. But my point is why did not somebody take their hat and say, whoa, we got something here, because ultimately when the teams got caught stealing signs, that had been going on for years. You know what I mean? It wasn't something that just happened. So my thing was the Yankees stealing signs, and that was the reason why they beat the Red Sox so badly 19-8, which would make a lot of sense, just because if you guys remember during the game, they seemed to know every pitch that was coming. They hit everything. It was a point in time when, just like how Millar said, it was not Millar, the catcher, not Tim Wakefield.
Veritek?
Yeah, Veritek said it was a turnstile. It was just like they were turnstile going over the bases, in that game. This turnstile just going around. He literally said that. And the only way I could think that could happen, which would make a lot of sense, is every pitcher you throw out there, they're hitting everything, is if you know what's coming. You know what I mean? What's your thoughts, Steve? I don't know, Kev, if you saw it, but since Steve was on it now. Steve, give me your thoughts first, your takeaways from that, and then any other thing that stood out to you during that documentary. What's your thoughts?
Well, let me start with the camera thing because you brought it up, right? Listen, it's probably not a secret that all the teams were doing it.
Right.
With or without cameras. I think at that time, maybe the cameras was a new thing, but go back to the 70s and 80s and they were stealing the signs. And that's why they had to keep changing them up, right? That's a known thing forever. Nobody's going to dispute that. It wasn't a thing until they started bringing in cameras and watches and trash cans and all this other stuff. So now there's more light shed on it. I'll tell you that I agree with you that the Theo interviews were fascinating. One of the things there's two things that really stood out to me. One of them is that they had Billy Beane signed in their back pocket. And, they had him, and then he left and thought about it and was like, I have a 12-year-old daughter, and she's going to be 3,000 miles away. I can't do this. And so that's the only reason that they didn't get him. And the other thing was the whole way and I know you're going to get to this at some point, but the whole way the whole Nomar thing went down, I didn't know the extent of how the trade was going to work, or more so what happened after Kevin Millar went on ESPN.
Right.
And they had asked him, who do you want, A-Rod or Nomar?
Right.
And he said, give me A-Rod. And Nomar was pissed. And this is the behind-the-scenes stuff we don't get to see.
Right.
He was ripped. And they were friends, which is also not known. Right. And so that whole dynamic and the way that whole thing went down, the Red Sox were going to end up with A-Rod, Maglio-Ordonez.
Right.
And Nomar was going to be gone. And, it was this close until Major League Baseball stepped in.
Yep.
There was something wrong with the way that deal was set up, and they kind of put the squash on it. And then, ironically, after Aaron Boone blew out his knee or whatever playing basketball, that the Yankees signed A-Rod. So he went from being a Red Sox in 2 seconds, and then 2 seconds later he's on the Yankees. And so that whole thing is just wild.
I remember all the above stuff. I remember all the above stuff of the A-Rod stuff. I remember living that. I remember all that like it was yesterday. I don't, you know what I mean? Because
I do like too. It's the Nomar stuff I didn't know about.
Yeah, the Nomar stuff is what, like, I had no idea Nomar was such a pain in the ass to the team and to the upper management at the time. And I got Kev. I'm not gonna lie to you. You and I used to talk all the time. I'm sure you can relate that. We used to be huge Nomar, fans. You know what I mean? We used to talk about how great Nomar was and everything else. And I'm not sure if you got a chance to see this documentary, Kev, but hearing from what we're saying, Kev, you want to jump in and tell anybody, any thoughts that you might have on hearing now that Nomar was literally the disruptive force of the team, because the minute they traded him, maybe a week or so later, the Red Sox went on and I didn't know it was the reason, you know what I mean? But the minute they traded him, the Red Sox picked up some steam and ran all the way to the ALCS. What's your thoughts, Kev, on finding out right now in this conversation that Nomar was the stickler, was the focal point of everything going wrong in the 2004 season? What you think, Kev?
What I would say is it's kind of surprising. I'm a little shocked to hear that because I was a Nomar fan. But I think if I can kind of equate it to how we felt about Belichick in the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
At times he would make some calls that we would go, no, he's not letting him go. But then the guy would go someplace else, and I'm thinking of the gentleman, big guy that we had for the, with the Patriots, and he ended up going with the Raiders.
Richard Seymour?
Yeah.
Seymour?
And we were like, no. But it always seemed like Belichick had a reason for doing what he was doing, letting somebody go. And we didn't know it, from out front here in TV land, but we're looking at them like shook, like, what is he doing? But they have their reasons. And with the Nomad thing, I wouldn't have known that, but knowing it now is like, wow, that's upsetting to know. But if it was a good manager that was there, I would say, well, he must have had a good reason.
Right. All right. So I'm gonna keep this thing moving on. But before we jump on to the next subject and everything else, I need Steve you to give me your thoughts on this Nick Pivetta thing, because I'll be honest with you, I could not believe the Red Sox gave Nick Pivetta a qualifying offer. I was so disappointed like this, because to me, I don't know his numbers and everything else, but from the little bit that I did see, I think he's a bum. So seeing the documentary, seeing how good Theo is, seeing how good the Red Sox was, to seeing how they are now with the same management and the same ownership is really disappointing to me, Steve. So talk to me, give me a breakdown on what your thoughts on this Nick Pivetta deal.
Yeah, and before you do, Steve, 21 million? Really?
That's the part that has me pissed off. Wow. So here's the thing. I posted it, right, Frank? He's not worth 21 cents. Never mind 21 million. He's a 500 pitcher. He pitches good against the crappy teams, and he pitches like crap against the good teams. His ERA is always over 4, probably like around 4.5. And this guy, so there's details I didn't realize until I heard and read some things, that the reason they made him the qualifying offer is because anybody that signs him has to give the Red Sox compensation. So they're looking to get in a draft pick back. And to me, he's not even worth whatever they're going to get back. I don't care. Like, just let it go.
Right.
Now, if he takes the deal and they don't trade him away, you're on the hook for a guy for $21 million who's an average guy. And we're talking about adding top-of-the-line rotation guys, and you did this? And so I am furious at them. I am pissed off. I don't care if they trade him. I don't give a crap if they give him away for a bag of rocks. I don't care anymore. I'm so mad at this. It's like they're just showing you more of the same garbage. You're going to wind up with him in the rotation again as the fifth guy. And I heard some stupid nonsense about, well, maybe they'll make him the closer. If they do that, you didn't want to pay Kenley Jansen $16 million to close. You're going to pay this guy $21? I don't get it, Frank. I'm scratching my head over here.
Let me ask you guys this, and either one of you guys can jump in on this.
Go ahead, Kev. You take it.
Do you guys, either one of you guys, think that the Red Sox are jumping on this Juan Soto, bid right now? Because right now I saw people are saying online that he's going to be up for $600 million for $600 million for 5 years, $600 million for 4 years, but he's in the $600 million range right now. That's his starting asking price. You know what I mean? So that's he.
Well, let me jump in Let me jump in here. There was a post from somebody on the Dodgers that used to work in the Red Sox front office, and he came out and said he had a picture of like Freddie Freeman, Ohtani, Betts, right? And he said that John Henry, when they went to go sign Mookie Betts, has no interest in mega deals. And the guy said something like, "Looks like mega deals works." You think they're going to give Juan Soto $600 million? Are you crazy? It's never going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen, Kev. I don't know if you think it's going to happen. I think this is what I think. The Red Sox ownership, years ago when they first came in, they wanted to break the mold and win a World Series. Now that they have 4, I don't think they care about World Series anymore. I think they care about income, and I think they're happy with. Kev, you can jump in and tell me what you think, but I think they're happy with rolling out. I think they're happy with rolling out mediocre people because they know the fans are going to still come to Fenway. They're still going to make some money. That's what I think that they're happy. What's your thoughts, Kev?
I'm out. I'm checked out. Sorry. I told you that is the exact reason why I am checked out.
But you're not alone. I mean, think about this. If it wasn't for this show, I might not be watching them. I mean, you're doing the same thing over again. I'm not going to get started, Frank. We'll keep the show moving, but you know where I stand with them right now. They're just they're not proving it. So I fight with these people on Facebook about. They're like, oh well, it's a new dawn, a new season, and everything's going to be different. No, I have to see it. The words are not doing anything anymore. It's just useless drivel.
All right, let's move it on. Let's move on because we all know where we're going with the Red Sox. We could talk about the Red Sox for an hour because they piss us off so much.
Well, plenty of time when the hot stove winter meetings start next month.
Right. Let's jump into the Boston Bruins because Steve, I saw a segment on ESPN. I want to say Saturday night, whatever night it was. I had the thing on. I was working over late night. And,
Hold on, is that me clicking?
I don't hear any clicking.
Clicking?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I thought I heard something.
No, I don't hear anything. But anyway, I saw a segment on the Boston Bruins, and they did a segment. And what was really curious about the segment was obviously about Jim Montgomery, Steve. And even though this Bruins have look like they're turning things around, people were saying, and people came on especially the sports hockey guy came on and said that he thinks Jim Montgomery won't last the season if the Bruins turn out to be a 500 team. And I wanted to get your take on this because the way they were making the Boston Bruins look, it looked pretty bad, Steve. Even though at the time when he came on, the Bruins had won. I think they had won Saturday night. I think it was Saturday night or Friday night, whatever. It was over the weekend. I saw the segment and everything else. Steve, should the Bruins get rid of Jim Montgomery if they turn around and they do a subpar season? What's your thoughts on this? Because there's supposed to be turmoil in the team.
Well, when they got blown out 8-2, I thought that he was going to be gone either before Saturday's game against Philly or if they had lost Saturday and Sunday, playing the same way, lifeless,
Right.
In disarray. When the commentators come on after the game and say, hey, they look like they're in disarray, if I had seen that 2 more games, they might have fired him Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he's definitely on the hot seat. And then they played better in those 2 games, and then last night they do the complete thing they've been doing for a week. So I think he's on the hot seat. I think that they're only going to give him. He's on a short rope. He might not make it to Thanksgiving. And if he does, it's going to be still a short leash until they look. And so I don't know how far I want to go with this, but I am in favor now of they need a shake up in the locker room. And I'll tell you, the 2 guys that are on my radar right now is Brandon Carlo. He's the first one. I want them to ship him off and send a message to the locker room that we're not tolerating this crap anymore.
Right.
And I would not be surprised if Marchand was traded. I don't think they'll do it, but if you really wanted to send a message, you trade. Now, typically teams don't trade their captain away, but he hasn't been 100%. I know he had the 3 surgeries and whatnot, but he could go to a contending team. And maybe that happens at the trade deadline. He's like, hey, I'm not going to sign an extension. Get me out of here. Let me go play for a playoff team. But they need a major change in the locker room. Something's going on in there, and they're not buying in. They're not listening to him. Something's going on. I can't figure it out.
Kev, Steve and I talked on Sunday, and I'm going to loop you in this conversation, which he just touched on a little bit. We talked on Sunday about the Bruins, and we were saying this is my take. The Bruins got blown out by 2 games by 2 of the worst teams in the league. Then they were getting ready to lose the next game, and I basically positioned this thought to Steve and said, is it possible that there's something seriously going on with the Boston Bruins that people aren't talking about? Because we all know that it's basically the same team, right? Same team comes back, and the same team does not perform the way it's performing. And Kev, I'm sure you remember this. Remember the time years ago when the Nets were having a situation when they were playing really well one year, and the next year they played really horrible with the exact same team, and come to find out somebody was sleeping Jason Kidd girl or something like that. Like somebody was sleeping with somebody's wife, and the whole team imploded in turn, and people couldn't figure out why, and it came out years later. So I positioned that same thought to Steve, and I said, Steve, I don't know how it goes in hockey, but if something, not saying to that degree, but or something that heinous, but is it possible that the hockey team can go off the cliff, and it's even besides the coach losing the locker room team, is it possible that you just lose the whole team because there's something else really, really seriously going on. What's your thoughts on this, Kev? And then Steve, I want you to answer that question too. Kev, go ahead.
Well, personally, my thoughts are I think that the team has checked out. The locker room's checked out. But I was telling Steve and I were talking about this earlier in the season. I told you that the coach may not have been, or the manager may not have been the main issue, but the way that management has been handling this whole thing with them, it's almost like they're playing with them. They're not giving them the reins to go out and do what he has to do.
Right.
So
But,
I feel
right.
like they, because his hands are tied, he's kind of like with the golden handcuffs. The locker room saying like what good is it? What can we do?
Right,
and they checked out.
Right, Steve. So the Bruins are 2-1 in the last 3 games. Do you think that you're watching them play every game? You're watching them play everything else. Do you get a sense of the team moving forward, or do you still think overall, even though they're 2-1 in the last 3 games, do you still think that they're playing flat? You know what I mean? And it looks. It doesn't look.
They played flat yesterday. So they played 2 games good. They came out flat yesterday. And I'll say 2 things right now. One is I blame Don Sweeney because they have too many new guys.
Mm-hmm.
So he has basically given Jim Montgomery chicken salad and asked him to make filet mignon out of it.
Right.
And that's not going to work with the guys that they have. They lack scoring talent. The other thing is Jim Montgomery doesn't have an extension, so he's kind of in lame duck status. And now I've heard some things where, these player coach guys, he's flipped a switch now. He's yelling at them all the time. And they might be just like, this isn't the same guy. What the hell are we doing here? Who do we have? He doesn't have an extension. We're not going to listen to him and tune him out. It's a little bit different than Alex Cora not having an extension because, the guy can manage. His situation is a little different, but I think in Jim Montgomery's case, maybe he's upset that he doesn't have an extension and he knows that they're undermanned.
Maybe it's
now
stress.
He's trying to,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut
stress.
you off.
No, you're right. Stress. That exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he's stressed. He's got a situation where he doesn't have an extension for a contract, so his future is uncertain, and he's given chicken salad to work with. They're undermanned. And there's other things too. There was some additions and subtractions on the coaching staff, and so now their power play and their penalty kill both look horrible. Their positioning looks horrible. That maybe there's some adjustment period there with the new coaches. There's speculation now because one of the guys that's an assistant coach was the coach of the Providence Bruins. Right. And so the speculation is that for Jim Montgomery is that, he's going to get canned and one of these guys that's already has experience is going to take over. They'll just plop that guy right in. And he's familiar with some of the guys from Providence. I've seen that before. It's not, I don't know. I'll look at this. This does happen across the NHL, and I'll try and be brief. Last year, Edmonton got off to a horrible start. They were 6-15 or 9-15, 9-12, whatever. They were bad. And they fired the coach. And then they went on a run, and they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. So, if it's this bad after another week or two, and they're floundering and they're within 1 or 2 games of 500 or under 500, in the next few weeks, and it's not, and they look lifeless. I mean, this is the problem. They just look like they're skating around in circles. They can't generate offense. Last night they got a lot of shots on goal, but the nights where they get 14 shots on goal and the other team has 30, and they get 18 shots on goal and the other team has 25 or 30, they can't generate, and they're not skating, and they're not forechecking and doing the things that they need to do. The 2 games they won, they did Bruins hockey. Every other game, pretty much, other than those couple games, has been just they just look wrong. They look messed up.
Well, I think you just basically topped it off. Because I was going to ask you a question about whether or not you think that the manager will last throughout the season, but I kind of think that you kind of answered that. so
I don't think he's gonna if they're playing this poorly. Listen, when the team looks lifeless and they look in disarray and they look disinterested and they're not listening and they're not buying into the coach. Yeah. And you can say that for any sport that we watch. The locker room's gone. They have to make a change. They don't have a choice.
Right. All right. Let's move on. Let's move on, and I got to talk about the Patriots, the New England Patriots. Steve. You know what, Kev? This is gonna be really funny because Steve is my brunt guy. Like when I be really, 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 really hot, I call Steve, and Steve makes me worse. But that's another conversation. He gets me more upset, but that's another conversation.
Well, that's because you're expecting positive Pete. You can forget that.
Yeah. But when I want positive Pete, I'll call Kev. When I want to be more angry, I'll call you. That's what I do.
Well, you know why you want to be more angry, Frank, is because misery loves company. That's why.
That's exactly the reason why. All right, let's just dive into the game. If you guys have the chance to see the game, you know the New England Patriots played the Tennessee Titans. The New England Patriots, they played pretty well somewhat of the game. Drake May was definitely the star of the game. If you guys got a chance to see the game, Drake May was the star of the game. But unlike the sports talk guys that are going to talk about how they did, how many yards they got, and all this other stuff, and you know, I wanted to put a different spin on this, and I want to basically ask. I don't know who wants to go first, but I want to ask you guys this: should the Patriots be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline, which just passed? Because the Patriots right now need a whole lot of talent, and right now as it stands, the Patriots are in line to get the number one pick in the draft. Josh Uche's name's been out there, circling out there for trade bait. Actually, half the roster's been, out there for.
He was actually traded to Kansas City, by the way.
That's right. There are a couple other guys out there, names have been, trade bait. So Kendrick Bourne's name I heard this morning.
Kyle Duggar, that was a surprise to me.
I heard Kyle Duggar's name. I heard several players. Matter of fact, I'll drop this with you first, Kev, because the Patriots are so bad. Should the Patriots be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline? Should they try to build? What's your thoughts on this, Kev? Buyers or sellers? What are you thinking?
Sell it.
You know you got to expand on your
sell it. They're done. They were done 2 games ago. They need to sell it and start over from scratch with a new coach, a new offensive line, and spend some money on some wide receivers and one good running back. That's it. Done.
Okay. So you're saying sell. So Steve, I will say this: if they become buyers, that sets them in one direction. If become sellers, when the season's over, they line themselves up to get a whole lot of picks. You know what I mean? This is crazy. I'm undecided because the Patriots have potential. I think one of their, it's going to sound crazy because you know how mad I was Sunday. I think one of their worst things, and I rewatched that game, Steve, was the play calling. I literally think, Steve, there's a tipping point, right? There's a tipping point of all the problems. We already know what the problems are on the field. We already know how that goes. And Steve, I told you, and if you guys sitting at home, you watch Patriots, you already know some of their serious problems are obviously, talent based because they don't have a lot of talent. But then again, from the little bit of talent they do have, the coaching is making it worse. If I'm wrong, Steve, please let me know what your thoughts are. But I think Van Pelt is really, really, really bad offensive coordinator. I really don't want him here. And I can go on and on. But to be fair to you, Steve, I'm going to let you go so you can get me more upset so I can come in and start spitting fire and out of my ears and everything else. So Steve,
all right, so let me answer the first part of that question. I don't think they should be sellers because the guys that they're going to trade away, they're going to get like 5th and 6th round picks for 2026. They already did that. I don't want to see Kyle Duggar getting traded for a 3rd round pick. That doesn't help us next year. Right? Everybody's like, oh, you got to stockpile these picks. Look, Belichick was excellent at that. We don't have that anymore. I don't want them to trade. Listen, you're still going to need guys to play good defense. I think that the injuries obviously have hurt them. You need cornerstone pieces here. Kyle Duggar's a cornerstone guy. He's not a guy I would trade away. So certain guys sell. KJ Osborne, they couldn't give him away for a bag of footballs. That's a guy definitely should have been traded away. But I don't think they should have been sellers. I think what they did is they did nothing. It's fine. They're not going anywhere anyway. Whether or not they get the number 1 pick, let's just say they pick in the top 5 again. It's fine. We know they're rebuilding. And I agree with you that the coaching now, Van Pelt, we talked about this. Yep. Too many passes going sideways. to the sideline, trying to get these quick bubble things.
Too many screens,
like,
yeah. Too many
like
screens
they used to do with Troy Brown, wide receiver screen thing.
Yeah.
Look, you don't have the personnel and the blocking to accomplish that right now. You need, and so Kev, wants a running back. They just signed Stevenson to 4 years and $9 million a year. He's your running back.
Nope.
The reason it looks bad is because the offensive line can't make holes. They're horrible, and so we've been beating this dead horse endlessly. They have done what I asked, though. I will give them a half a sliver of an ounce of credit. Remember a few weeks ago, probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I said there should be a line out Foxborough Stadium, Gillette Stadium, of offensive linemen, coming in for tryouts. So they picked up another guy this week off the scrap heap to try to rectify it. They've picked up 3 or 4 guys in the last few weeks. So they are at least trying to do something, even if it's not working. But I think the play calling is causing them. And look, I think part of it's that stupid new zone scheme crap. We've been beating this dead horse for 2 years now. I hate that thing. When they were early in the year, they were road grading everybody. They were just running forward straight. None of this sideways dipsy-do crap. And we talked about it on the phone, Frank. They're not using, because the guys they have are so bad, and they have to dumb down the playbook so much now. I think we don't see guards pulling to make runs in this offense.
Yeah.
That's huge. And we also talked about not having a fullback, which would help open things up.
When you watch a team like Kansas City play, I swear to God, I had so many flashbacks to the Patriots, and I watched Kansas City play the other night. I was like, the Patriots used to have a whole lot of players that they could, when the quarterback stepped back, he knew a guy would catch it, and they would run it, and they were moving the ball, and they looked a lot like the Patriots of old. So, Kev, I'm going to ask you your thought, and Steve, I'm going to ask you your thought. Should Jared Mayo be on the hot seat now or not? Or should Van Pelt be on the hot seat now or not? Both? Or what's your thoughts? Because I'll put it out there right now. I think if the Patriots don't lose another game, this may sound terrible for you guys with Patriots fans like me. I'm a big Patriots fan. Jared Mayo's got to go. I'm sorry. I don't like the way he's overseeing the team. I don't like the way he's the head of the coaching staff and the direction he seems to be going in. And we're squandering some great potential here with Drake May, in my opinion. Not that Drake May's going to win you 6 or 7 games and anywhere else. I just like to see them try and move the ball down the field and try to win a game instead of some horrible play calling and some horrible decisions being made. Hot seat or not, Kev? What's your thoughts?
Both of their seats are in full flames. They're burnt up. They need to go. They both need to go. Sorry. Do you want me to elaborate on that?
Yeah, just a little bit.
They suck. They need to go.
He doesn't even elaborate. He just said, "When we elaborate, they suck."
They gotta go.
All right. So, Steve, we talked about this. Everything else, I don't want to.
Let me answer that real quick for a second.
No, I'm gonna let you answer. I'm just saying I don't want to keep beating the drum on everything else. Just tell me what you think about whether or not these guys should be on the
Frank,
hot
you're
seat,
wicked staticky.
or both, or together. Or
Frank, when you're talking, it's real staticky.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was okay with a few clicks here and there, but it was really bad right there.
Okay, I'll come back out. Answer the question. I'm coming back out.
All right. So what was the question? I missed half of it.
Hot seat or not?
Oh yeah. Listen, Alex Van Pelt definitely on the hot seat, right? That's a no-brainer. I think Mayo would be on the hot seat if they get worse and worse and worse, and they play the way they were playing a couple weeks ago. I think that there's improvement. I mean, they're in these games. If they were getting blown out by double digits every game, and it wasn't getting better, and there was no improvement at all with Drake May, and if Drake May was in there, he was horrible, and they weren't doing anything. Then I could see blowing everybody out. But they're in these games. They're beating themselves. This is. I don't know how many times do we have to say that, it's a winnable game.
Right. So who's that on?
Well, it's on the coaching, right, to an extent, but it's also on the fact, again, they got chicken salad to work with. So, Frank, let me recap you. I said, Van Pelt's definitely on the hot seat, right, for sure. And Mayo, I think, is he's probably going to get a second year. And like I was saying to Kev, they're showing improvement. they're in these games. If they were getting blown out the way they got blown out in Jacksonville, and they were flat like the Bruins, and they're getting their doors blown off every week, then they're all gone. But they are in the game. I mean, for them to even tie it up at the end, or be within striking distance, and they're beating themselves with stupid penalties, like all the stuff we talked about. So Mayo, I think if they keep these games close the rest of the way, he's probably going to be back. You have to give him a second year. Well, I shouldn't say you have to, but I think Kraft will give him a second year because if whatever his contract is, you're not going to want to pay him to go somewhere else. And Frank, you and I talked on Sunday. The fix would be to bring Josh McDaniels back and blow out Van Pelt so you can reinvigorate the offense. This offense that he has is too conservative. It's too much 1995 Cleveland. We can't have this anymore. They're not driving the ball downfield. So does that kind of answer the question for you?
It does, but here's my issue with that answer. In one sense, Drake May is the reason why they were in the games because of broken down plays, and I think he's getting to the line. Like I watched the game twice. The first time I was watching just to watch it. The second time I watched the game, I was watching trying to analyze it like how they do. And a lot of times he called a second play that he called because the first play broke down, or he saw that the defense was getting ready to break through the line and everything else. So especially at the end when they did that straight down the field, when they marched down the field like that and scored the touchdown, that was all Drake May. I don't think any of that was coaching. I think that was all him. He willed them all the way down. And if you recall, the second play when they were down by the 12 or 15-yard line, the first play, anything, they move up, they get a penalty back. Drake May didn't call it, anything back. The second play after that, the very second play after that, it was a reception, like a 24-yard reception. And the second play after that, and Drake May goes up to the line. This is why I think this kid is special. He goes up to the line and he sees things that normally rookies don't see that early on. And then he'll call and change the play, and then he'll will himself and move the play down. Granted, he might get sacked or anything else, but he sees stuff way better than Mac Jones did.
Or even Brissett because he's more elusive.
Yeah, and he can move around and everything else. So that was my only issue with your answer, because he will make sure he moves the ball one way or the other. And I like that he does that and he changes the calls, because the calls coming in from the side, they absolutely suck. I mean, they're horrible. They all are screens. When you're trying to get down and the clock is running against you, you want to throw the ball to the sides, but ahead, you don't want to throw the ball directly to your side. You know what I mean?
And on one or two of them, they knew it was coming. That guy number 4, Hasty, was right in front of him. The guy came right through and tackled him before he even got the ball practically.
Yeah, he was ready.
That's bad.
And it's really bad when all the teams in the league know that you're throwing screens. Like all of them do. So the last 2 weeks, all the teams have been saying, okay, the Patriots are going to do a screen and they're going to run the ball first down every time. And the Patriots are doing it. That's the reason why I'm like, this dude's got to go. Because even, my grandmother could sit there and say, listen, I know this play's getting ready to come. We're going to run this play to the right or to the left, but we're going to run. Like, you can't play like that. Football, you have to decide whether you're going to run or pass. People have to be saying, okay, where are we at? All right, looking at the time. We didn't talk about the Celtics yet. I want to be able to talk about the Celtics and then get to the picks and the polls and things like that, because I want to be able to cover that and then pick our picks for next week. I want to be able to do that. First thing I want to throw out there, though, is about the Boston Celtics. And the Celtics, I watched them last couple of games. They're 7-1. They're playing Golden State right now. That they destroyed it. They destroyed Atlanta so bad, I fell asleep on the game. And I had to cut back on and watch it and tell, okay, what happened? Because the game was lifeless. It was boring. You know what I mean? And this is one thing that the Celtics are doing, for those of you sitting at home, in case you didn't notice. This is what I'm really, really loving, is the Celtics are mixing and matching the lineups all the time, every game. They're bringing in a lot of guys off the bench. Drew Holiday is coming in. Drew Holiday might start the game, might play 5 minutes, and then Peyton Pritchard to come in, and then he'll give you 5. And then, of course, Derek White will come in. He'll give you 5. And they're rotating the guards. They're definitely rotating the wings a whole lot better. They're getting a lot of substitution patterns, and they're getting a lot of the guys who normally didn't play last year a lot of playing time. And I'm absolutely loving that, because by the time the end of the season comes, guys will be used to playing and won't have no fear. And then other teams will sit there and say, oh, my God, we have to fear everything from the team. I said it to you guys before. You guys might have thought I was crazy. To me, this Celtics team from last year and this Celtics team from this year is one of the best assembled teams from 1 to 15 that I've ever seen the Boston Celtics put out, ever, all time. Like, I can't, especially the way they shoot, especially the way they tackle. It's the same thing. The Celtics do the same thing. They shoot. You come out to press the three. They attack the basket, and they move the ball around. It's a simple formula, and it's winning for them. And the one game they lost, they only lost because at the end of the game they got a little cold at the time, or else they'd have won that game too. It'd be 8-0. But anyway, Kev, you want to jump in here first? Are you liking what you're hearing about Joe Mazzulla's new, and I mean new, substitution pattern? Because for a couple of games, Al Horford didn't even play, and now the last 3 games, even though he's injured, Jaylen Brown is not playing. He's still supposedly injured. He's not playing tonight either. But the Celtics are still extremely dominant. What's your thoughts on this, Kev?
This is what we talked about. This is what you and I talked about 2 seasons ago.
Yep.
The same thing.
Yeah.
We wanted Joe to use more of the bench, use a lot more substitution patterns, so that way when we get further into the season, a lot of these guys coming off the bench and they're already into the flow of things. They know what their jobs are, what they need to be doing at that time. Like you said, the substitution patterns for some of these guys that weren't even seeing the court. Now they're getting comfortable with it as well, being in that rotation, being alongside some of the starters that are doing it. So what's going to happen at the end of near the close of the season, going into the playoffs? The bench, everybody's going to be on the same page, knowing what they need to do, what their roles are, and how we all going to contribute to this next win. They're all going to be ready.
Right. The surprise of the year so far, though, up until this exact point, though, Steve, has got to be Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard's in conversations right now, Steve, to be the 6th man of the year. He's one of the highest scoring 6th men coming off the bench. And honestly, this is going to sound really crazy coming out of my mouth, Steve, but I think a lot of it is coaching, because the coaches decided to put a lot on his plate, and he's been answering the call because he's scoring, and he's unstoppable. He's like little Mighty Mouse out there and everything else. Steve, what's your thoughts on stuff that you've been hearing and anything you might have seen?
His confidence level is
his confidence level's through the roof. I agree with you. I think that, he's Vinnie Johnson 2.0 microwave. I mean, he just comes in, he's on fire.
Yeah.
And it's good to see. And look, he's tough defensively too. It's not just all offense. He's a scrappy player, and he brings energy. And so you need those guys. And he's done a fantastic job. Now, listen, me hopping on the threes. I don't like 63s in a game, but that's the way it is. Everybody's doing them. I did hear something I want to ask you guys about. I heard something on sports radio. The guys were talking about proposed rule changes where they want to take away the corner 3. And for the little I know about basketball, I'm not in favor of that. Otherwise, your only other option is just make that particular spot a 2-point basket and then move the 3-point line back further if you want less threes. And so it's like these guys are trying to change something that really they shouldn't be changing, in my opinion. But as far as the Celtics go, they're loaded. I watched a little bit before we came on. Neemias Queta came back. One of the things, and I've said this, is their defense. Is just when the guys all play defense, like you can tell when they're trying and when they're not. When they're trying, their defense is unbelievable. Queta came in and some guy was going up and he just like ripped the ball away from him, blocked him. We've talked about Derek White getting blocks and stuff. So they're a complete team. And I mean complete as in both, not just the offense, but their defense when they're on is tough. And so they're loaded. And I agree with you. They're the best team, I've probably seen in a long time. And they have depth, probably, I wouldn't say 15, but they definitely got, 10, maybe even 12. Jordan Walsh is getting more minutes. He's interesting. He brings some energy. Young kid.
Jordan Walsh is getting inserted in the game. Peyton Pritchard's doing well. Sam Howell's is coming back from an injury. He's playing a little bit better than everything else right now. But the big highlight is what I started out with this conversation and saying the rotation pattern is something I've never seen before. It was one of my stickler points 2 seasons ago. Yeah,
I remember you saying you hated the combinations. I remember that.
Yeah, I was hating it. But everything I was complaining about, they're doing now. You know what I mean? Like I was literally complaining, you got a deep bench and you're only playing two other guys. You know what I mean? I hated that. But I don't know if it's because of the assistant coaches of saying this now, and they do it doesn't even matter. The point of the matter is right now the Celtics are winning. You know what I mean? And I'm happy with that. I guess my next question to you guys is: any concerns from either one of you with Jaylen Brown? Excuse me, with his hip injury, because I remember the game that he fell on and everything else, and I'm trying to figure out. I wonder if this is more serious than what the Celtics are trying to let on, or are they just resting him because they want to give Jordan Walsh, some more time and building up his confidence. Kevin, what do you think?
I heard that he's fine. He'll probably be back on the 8th, but maybe they'll kind of like take it easy on him because we're doing well. And if you can get some other brothers some time on the court, get them some feels, it's a bonus. It's a bonus. And he'll be healthy and ready to go still. Jaylen Brown, I think we're in a good position to have a whole lot of good players that had came back from last year's win with that enthusiasm and invigoration to do it again.
Right. All right. So I want to switch gears from the Celtics.
Let me jump in for 2 seconds. The only concern I have is 2 MRIs. Hopefully they didn't find anything, but when you hear that, that's a slight concern. And I agree with what Kev said. They're deep enough that early in the season they can afford to sit him and give him the rest.
Steve, I was setting you up for something different, but yeah, I know you had to say that about Jaylen Brown, but I was setting you up for a big question here. So bear with me. Lately there has been an issue with Jaylen Brown. I mean, with Joel Embiid pushing a reporter, and a reporter supposedly talking about his family and being disrespectful. So, Steve, since you jumped in, I want you to continue and answer this question. Do you think Joel Embiid was in his realm of being able to say what he said? Do you think he was out of bounds for threatening the reporter, or are you down the road? Because this is causing a big thing in Philly. He got a 3-game suspension. And if you're sitting at home, you don't understand what he's saying. Joel Embiid did not like the way that the reporter talked about his family and was bringing up his family and having some issues and stuff on and off the court and everything else. So he took a real big offense to that. And in my opinion, the reporter was out of bounds. But also Joel Embiid was out of bounds for his response of threatening this man in front of the entire media. So that's where I am. What's your take on this, Steve? What do you think?
All right, so I only heard a little bit about this, but I think that we talked about this before.
Right.
When you make it personal with the players, if we come on here, we make it personal with these guys and attack them, that's wrong, right? Your job is, and we're not reporters, but their job is to cover the team. Their job isn't to slander the guy's family or bring his family into the article and, spew whatever it is that they're trying to do to get a rise out of the guy. That stuff's typically off limits. And so I think the reporter was wrong, number one. And so if there was no suspension for him or no discipline or no apology, that's wrong. Also, we've talked about it with these guys. I understand his frustration. Maybe I don't know if he pushed the guy or yelled at him or threatened him or whatever it is, but
he just threatened him. He didn't.
He has to do his best. They're professionals and they have rules and etiquette and all this stuff that they're supposed to do. And you have kids watching you, so and the league is watching, and it's a black eye for them. And so I don't know if a 3-game suspension is the right punishment for it, but a 1-game suspension I could totally understand. But these guys have to act more professional, and it should be something that's dealt with outside of the public. It should be something that's dealt with between whoever that guy works for in the media and the team's media relations, and then they have everybody sit at a table and apologize and shake hands and move on, because now the guy still has a job to do, right? He's still going to be in the locker room, and you don't want more tension at any other point later on in the year. But I think that these guys, we've talked about this too. Social media makes everybody keyboard warriors or even print warriors, and without without punishment, without any repercussions. These guys are just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again, and then the players just have to sit there and grit their teeth. When it's personal like that and they attack people's family, I don't agree with that at all. It's one thing for us to come on here and say Joel Embiid sucks, or this guy sucks, or that guy sucks. We're fans. We're just like, yeah, that guy can't, can't drain a 5-footer. But to come on there and then stop being like, oh, his family this and his family, like, who are we? Like, that's wrong. That's not what we're here for. We're fans, or even let's say we're covering the team. We're not allowed to berate the guy's family. That's just off limits, and it's wrong.
Yeah, that's
it is way out of bounds. Way out of bounds. So
Kev, do you
it's
think
wrong on both sides.
Do you think Joel Embiid was right to threaten that man back in front of the camera and everything? Where are you standing on this, Kev? Where's your thoughts?
Well, from what I heard, the threats that he levied back at the guy, he said something to the effect, if I could be mistaken, but it was something to the effect of, if you talk about my family or about my kid again, you're going to see what's going to happen to you.
That's exactly what he said. Yeah.
So
and he got a 3-game suspension for that, for those of you sitting at home. That's why I'm saying I understand Joel Embiid's part, because the guy made it personal, and all Joel Embiid said to him was, you're taking it basically out of bounds of being personal, and if you talk about my family again, you're not going to like the result. Right. So I guess basically what I'm saying to you, Kev, is do you think the NBA was right or wrong for suspending him 3 games for basically putting, saying what he's saying?
No, they weren't. But then again, Adam Silver is I don't want to say that, but he's trying to appease everybody except for the people that really need his support and the justice part of it. Because if he could have admonished the reporter, and said to Joel Embiid, hey, listen, you can't do that. You can't threaten anybody. It's on TV. You can't do that. You can't. But three game suspension for that? No, not warranted. Under the circumstances, no, not warranted. But then again, this league. If I don't want to say the other person's name, but if this had been somebody else and he had done it, it'd have been like, oh, no problem. They would have.
Steve, he's talking about LeBron. Steve,
I know who he was talking about. I got it. Trust me. We already know his disdain for LeBron. But yeah. Listen, I think if anything, 1 game, but not 3. I think that's excessive.
I thought it was excessive too. His man's family, that's 3 checks he misses out. And the other guy who started the thing doesn't get punished at all. You know what I mean? The reporter who started the whole thing doesn't get punished at all. You know what I mean?
That's wrong too. So there needs to be, the league should step in to those guys and be like, hey, here's something.
Right. It's because
not fire him, but he should have some kind of discipline too. Whatever it is, suspension for a week.
I don't know, something. But the NBA can't really put this clamps down on him because they have no control on him. He's pressed. The only thing they can do is probably block his press credentials, but they can't block his press credentials because they can't do that because he's reporting on the games. They get sponsorship dollars from the games he reports, so they can't even touch him. So that's why I was like, it's kind of not fair, I don't know. It's kind of not fair.
I think they could have well, you know what? For the next 3 games, no locker room interviews for you. And put them on on the sideline to do something else.
Yeah, but they won't do that. Again, it leads into them getting sponsorship dollars. They won't do that. That hurts them.
Whole thing leaves a bad taste in the mouth.
Right.
A lot of fans that are looking at this and saying that this isn't fair. You're doing some stuff again that yet again isn't fair. And no wonder why the players are freaking wanting to take so much time off and
by not doing anything to that reporter, you're inviting more reporters to do the same thing along the line, and then you're going to have more of this later on, and more NBA players getting suspended, and more of these reporters getting nothing, and that's why I think the league should be allowed to step in and say, okay, look, go back to the paper and say, look, I don't want the guy fired, but you know what, you better replace him for a week and give him a suspension. I don't care if you pay him or not, but he's not allowed to be anywhere near the team for a week. And get me another guy, and that way, the guy's got he's got suspended for a week. Maybe maybe he goes to sensitivity training. I don't know what the hell they do, but there should be repercussions for him as well because you're inviting every other reporter in the NBA to do the same thing anywhere else on any team. I don't like that.
That's
All right,
exactly
let's
right.
dive into the polls because I'm looking at the time.
All right, let's do it. I promise we wouldn't run over. I promise to be a good boy. Let's do this.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so you guys weren't on last week, so I saved those poll questions. Maybe you guys were on. Did the Patriots get enough in return from the Chiefs for Josh Uche, a 2026 sixth-round pick? Yes, take what you can get, 0. No, should have gotten more, 100%.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. Keep going.
All right. Who's most responsible for the Bruins' offensive struggles? Don Sweeney, 40%, Jim Montgomery, 60%, the players, 0%. I said Don Sweeney because he's the one that gave the guy the roster.
Don Sweeney.
Okay.
This is from yesterday. How do you feel about the Patriots trade deadline deals or lack thereof? It's fine. They're in a rebuild, 0. Disappointed they need talent, 0. Wait, that's wrong. It's 100. The first one, it's fine. They're in a rebuild, 100%. Disappointed they need talent, 0. Doesn't matter. They're not going anywhere, 0. So that's it. I think most everybody agrees with us. It's fine. They're in a rebuild, so I don't want to see them trade away guys and get no pick. Get these picks for 2026. They don't need that.
I don't care.
Keep going.
Here's the predictions. Okay, so I still have yours from 2 weeks ago, Frank. Jerry Jones, hot water with the fans, calls for the coach to get fired, sticks with the coach.
Yep.
Russell Wilson has another good game, 20 of 78, 278 yards and a touchdown. Ding, ding, ding.
Yep.
Another wide receiver trade. There was, I think it was Amari Cooper to Buffalo, but you had Cooper Kupp going to Detroit or Philly, so that didn't pan out. So you're half right.
Yep.
You had the Bruins losing to Dallas and losing the next game as well. You were half right. They lost to Dallas, but they beat Toronto. Those were yours. Kev had from a few weeks ago, Patriots big win over Jacksonville, wrong. And he had Belichick getting a coaching job in the next 2 weeks, wrong. I don't think he's getting a coaching job this year at all. I think he's staying where he is so he can bash the Patriots some more.
But I think he's going to get a job. I think he's going to get
not this year though. It'll be after the year. All right. And I had the Patriots trading Josh Uche to Detroit because they lost the offensive lineman, defensive lineman. They had the top guy, so I was half right. And I had the Carolina Panthers firing their head coach. Wrong.
Yeah.
And I also, last week, because you guys weren't here, I did one. It was Jim Montgomery was going to get fired after they lost both games. Wrong. He's still here. So the Washington Generals of Boston Straight Shooters is still 0 for the week. It's my track record. My track record continues.
So, all right, so let's get the predictions in right now. We still got time. We got 3 minutes of change. What's the predictions? Anybody?
Mine is. I'm going to do this because I already had it and I already talked about it earlier. I think the Bruins are going to trade somebody significant from the roster, and I'm going to say Brandon Carlo because I want him gone. That's mine.
That's it. No more.
No.
Okay. All right. Kev, you got any predictions?
Can I do a wishful pick?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll save it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
This is a wishful pick.
Okay.
I wish that referee, Mr. Brothers, finally gets kicked out of the league.
Which guy is this?
Tony
Brothers. Tony Brothers from the NBA referee.
NBA referee. Okay.
Yeah, he's the worst ref in the league. Not gonna happen.
Worst ref ever.
Worst ref in the league. All right. Now, do you have any other? You have any other pick you want to make while we still got 2 minutes left?
That was the worst. Yeah, the Patriots are going to get their 3rd win
this week. Really? Against Chicago?
Against Chicago. Oof.
Yeah. Remember I said they. At first, I said 1 win for them. They stink. But then I said, okay, no. Okay, I'll give them 3.
3, and you think it's going to be this week, and that's it?
And
then they'll lose the rest of the games?
3rd. This is going to be their 3rd.
Yeah, I think since Chicago's on a reeling and they need to come back, I think Chicago's going to blow them out. I don't even think it's going to be close. I think Chicago's going to blow them out. But my surprise of the week is I think this upcoming game, the next game that the Kansas City Chiefs play, I don't care who it is. I don't even know who it is right now off the top of my head. I think they're going to finally get their loss. That's going to be one of my picks I go with. And I think the Detroit Lions are going to continue to keep trugging along. And I think we're going to hear a big news coming out of Dallas that when Dallas loses this week, I think they're going to fire their head coach. I think the ball, So I think that's it. I mean, did I miss anything? Anybody?
Nope.
And then what? Then Belichick?
Yeah, and I think they're going to hire I think 100% they're going to hire Belichick. I think 100% they're going to hire Belichick. Yeah, because it's really bad. I have a friend in Dallas. It's really bad in Dallas. Like it hasn't been this bad in Dallas since, oh my God, 15 years. Last 15 years.
Probably since the early 90s, late 80s and early 90s when they were like 1-15.
Yeah, probably. But it's really bad in Dallas.
Listen, when I posted the clip, when Dak Prescott is sitting on the sideline and mouthing, "We bleeping suck."
Yeah,
they suck. So listen, when their own guys are saying that they suck,
I love it. But that's another conversation.
Yes,
Tim, I'm not sunburnt. I'm hot. It's
all right, guys.
Here. These 76-degree temperatures.
We get ready to roll out because I'm out.
Yep, let's go.
Yeah. So anyway, this is the show called Boston Straight Shooters. Thanks to Kev for joining the show. Thanks to my other co-host Steve for joining the show. Steve's got to do more negative ranting online. And Steve, Kev, thank you for joining the show. I appreciate you guys. Steve, take us home.
Again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thanks for the support. Thanks for voting in the polls. Thanks for the commentaries. Stay tuned. Don't forget we're on YouTube now. So like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you back in next week. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Frank.
Bye.